forget about steel. Today we are diving into a truly special material, the royal oak in tantalum. A material that many of you probably don't know, but which is absolutely worth knowing. Let's discover together what King Juan Carlos of Spain has to do with it and what makes this watch material so unique. So this is what tantalum looks like in its original form. Not particularly special at first glance, but processed in a wristwatch, this material unleashes its full magic. And the royal oak is already an icon in the world of luxury watches. Launched in 1972 by Audemars Piguet, it revolutionized the watch industry with its bold design and combination of sporty aesthetics and fine watchmaking. But tantalum? What makes this watch so exceptional is not only its material, but also its history and the craftsmanship that goes into its production. Here you can see this 1980s masterpiece with the reference 56175 TR in 33 mm. The combination of tantalum and rosé gold, which is what the TR behind the reference stands for, exudes the atmosphere of industrial metallurgy that is so strongly anchored in the history of royal oak and enhance the visual and tactile experience with the warm rosé gold tones. For me, this is a perfect synergy of two phenomenal watch materials. This watch is a real pleasure on the wrist because tantalum is very heavy, indistinguishable from 18 karat gold. In fact, even the slimmer versions have a wonderful presence on the wrist, both tactile and visual. The royal oak is originally a pure steel watch. However, the tantalum variants are the perfect extension of the classic principles. And here is why. The very first royal oak reference 5402 was launched as a luxury steel sports watch. That's a genre that didn't really exist before 1972. So from day one, the royal oak put the emphasis on the case material, making it an integral part of the overall design and a guiding principle. But how does tantalum fit into this equation? Tantalum is a 73rd element in the periodic table, a transition metal, which was only discovered in the early 19th century. It is much more gray-blue than stainless steel and all in all is superhero material. It is extremely ductile and has a melting point of over 3000 degrees Celsius. It is also quite rare, making up on only about 0.0001 to 0.0002% of the Earth's crust. And less than 1,500 tons are mined each year, compared to over 2,500 tons annually for gold. And it's also quite heavy. In comparison, a tantalum rosé gold piece weighs about as much as a comparable 18 karat yellow gold example, and about 50 grams more than a two-tone steel gold watch. That's really something. The caseback of our royal oak reference 56175 bears the inscription AP Tantale. You can see the beautiful gray-blue sheen, which is much deeper and darker than that of stainless steel. Tantalum has so many different applications these days because it's non-scratching, corrosion-resistant, non-reactive to bodily fluids, and basically hypoallergenic. So compared to other watch-related materials, tantalum is on a higher level. It is hard as the best steel alloys and also offers twice the tensile strength of steel and gold. And these parameters are available in its elemental form. It is therefore a technology-critical element used in electronic devices and for medical purposes such as implants. But the downside is that it is extremely difficult to process. It cannot be soldered, which means that it can only be used in single element designs. In addition, its properties make it almost impossible to grind. This material is difficult to machine, isn't it? Does that mean anything to you? The original prototype of the Royal Oak 5402 were made in white gold rather than steel. because the steel alloy used for this reference was so difficult to machine. It is this extra mile that AP goes with the materials used that are the heart of the royal oak lines. And the change from steel to tantalum is like the change from gold to platinum. It's another step forward. Audemars Piguet began using the new material back in 1986. Tradition has it that AP began using tantalum following a request from King Juan Carlos of Spain. The Spanish king wanted his royal oak to have a more blued color, his trademark, but the usual techniques were not sufficient. However, tantalum made its debut in a mass-produced watch, not just as part of the Royal Oak collection. It was also introduced as a part of the 8e collection, the first ultra-thin chronograph from Le Bracelet, around the same time in 1988. Classic in tantalum. Here you can see an Audemars Piguet commercial from the late 1980s featuring the first tantalum Royal Oaks, as well as 8e chronograph. And in the meantime, over 35 years later, there are a total of 8 different material codes and fast combinations. Full tantalum in TL behind the reference, tantalum with steel in TS and TT, and rubber TK, as well as the precious mixtures with red gold TR and OL, yellow gold TA, and platinum TP. As I have already mentioned, it was not easy to use tantalum as a watch case, as it is very resistant. However, in the late 1980s, Favre and Piguet, the case manufacturer of the Royal Oak in La Chaux-de-Fonds, made this dream come true. And the bracelets were manufactured by another supplier, GTF. GTF, former Lascaux before 1986, was the manufacturer responsible for the most of the Royal Oaks bracelets, having taken over the helm from Guy Frères. And this is an aspect worth mentioning. Guy Frères stamped their bracelets with GF, often also with the ram's head stamp. GTF used a monogram stamp that can easily look like GF. This confusion can be even found in some auction house catalogs. It is an honest mistake, but it's a mistake nonetheless. To our knowledge, Guy Frères did not produce a single tantalum bracelet. Now, since tantalum is very difficult to process, the production quantity is very limited. The AP chronicles are usually quite complete, but unfortunately the full production result is not known. However, we can state that only 602 of mechanical models were produced in total. Little known is about the quartz-powered movements. And in the end, I'm still sitting here admiring our Royal Oak in tantalum and asking myself, why isn't tantalum more widely used? I suspect it's partly due to the lack of knowledge. Only few people outside the watch collecting community know that there is a Royal Oak made of tantalum, let alone even more than one. But there are several features that characterize many tantalum specimens that simply do not fit a Royal Oak. The first obvious feature is the tantalum itself, which may put off some Royal Oak headliners. The second is the fact that these watches never came in 39mm. The jumbo case is a classic Royal Oak size, but the tantalum references only come in 36mm or below. Thirdly, it is about the dial. One of the major contributions of the early Royal Oak references was the introduction of the intricate tapisserie dial, made from Stan Frères. But for me, it's great that Audemars Piguet introduced their own dial variants without tapisserie for the tantalum models. But from today's perspective, this might put some collectors off. Here you can see again different dial variants of the original Royal Oak references 56175, 14486 and 66270 with tantalum cases. In the grey-blue tantalum metal cases, however, only the Dacron vertical tantale on the bottom right can be found. The Royal Oak in tantalum is definitely something for the connoisseurs. It is a kind of acquired taste. Only if you think an old Royal Oak is too boring for you, you should look for a tantalum watch. And even then, you have to look quite hard to find one. The good thing is that tantalum is basically scratch resistant, so many of the ones still in circulation are in pretty pristine condition. But all the facts and figures aside, this is simply my royal oak. It is a classic with a difference. It is the basic principle and improves it on a meta level. It is everything the first royal oak stands for. And at the same time, it is some of the most atypical models you can imagine. For us, the royal oak represents innovation and a reinterpretation of our idea of how a watch case should be shaped, look and feel. In this sense, tantalum is in the same spirit.